So yeah, my name is Aaron Jayjack, and I am a storm chaser. And the last name Jayjack is all one word, Jayjack, not Jayjack. But I've been storm chasing for several decades now. But so I started off chasing back in the '90s in Indiana when I just got my driver's license. Um, right when Twister came out. And it was right after Twister came out. But I was always interested in tornadoes and chasing and stuff, and yeah, so I started chasing way back then. Eventually moved to Texas, closer to Tornado Alley. Uh, started chasing, of course, when I went to Texas. It was after I graduated college. I went to Texas for a job. I did software development. I made video games. Worked at Electronic Arts. So like EA Sports, if you're probably familiar with that, but I didn't do sports games. I did massive multiplayer online role-playing games, like MMOs for short, like Ultima Online or EverQuest. So I did that, but I
About to
storm
ask
chasing
about
the side.
EverQuest.
Yeah, I played a lot of EverQuest. I didn't work on EverQuest. I worked on Ultima Online, and I also worked on. I had friends I worked with at UO. Eventually worked on World of Warcraft and stuff like that, but I worked on Star Wars: The Old Republic was another big MMO. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but kind of
Holy, you worked on Knights of the Old Republic?
not KOTOR, the standalone original game. I worked on the
Okay.
MMO that was developed after that. So the guys that all worked here in Canada in Edmonton, the BioWare office, actually came down to Austin, Texas, where I lived and was working for EA. And I got a job at working for them to develop the online massive multiplayer online version of KOTOR. Yeah, Knights of the Old Republic. So but it was Star Wars. It was the Old Republic online, right? Is that what we called it? Sweater. Star Wars: The Old Republic. SWTOR. So yeah, so I
So
did video
badass.
game development, and then uh, eventually decided I got out of games and went into like regular software, and it was kind of soul sucking. I didn't. It was because you go from video games to enterprise software, really boring software. Like it's a big difference, right? Like video games was like hanging out and partying and making games. It was pretty badass, and then going to do enterprise software was pretty boring. So I decided to quit my job, sold my house, and I said I'm gonna go storm chase full time and start getting YouTube going and all that stuff. And yeah, so then I started doing some freelance as well, like working for AccuWeather and some weather apps and stuff, and still doing freelance now for AccuWeather, and then running social media and stuff like that. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So
When you were doing enterprise software, did you do SaaS type stuff?
yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was
Okay.
it was what was it? It was like business planning software. But I did I wasn't a I did the back end stuff, so I was online operations, DevOps. So we
Okay.
developed like tools and server and deployed the servers and the release pipeline and stuff like that to deploy the software. I didn't actually code the software, so
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Are you familiar with Go High Level?
Go high level.
It's like
No.
an all-inclusive CRM software. One of the bigger SaaS companies that's out there now.
Okay. Yeah, sounds vaguely familiar. I've gotten so out of touch with the tech side of all that. Like, I was yeah, you stay out of it. I've been out of it since 2017, and I didn't decide. I didn't choose to keep up with what's going on with all the latest stuff and all that. So I've been 100% focused on chasing, and yeah, so I've lost. I guess I'm never going back to technology. So
I'm genuinely interested. Like I'm asking these questions out of a genuine place of curiosity because until I started Storm Chaser coaching along with Trey, I had no concept of SaaS or anything. I couldn't have even told you what those letters stood for, but I was forced to, by virtue of starting a business, learn what all that stuff is. Because Trey's the pretty face who goes on camera and makes all the cool YouTube content and videos and everything, and I'm the ugly guy that they keep back behind the scenes to do all the CRM stuff and make sure all the trains run on time for the company. And yeah, it's a really fascinating little industry to get into, man. Once you start learning about all the different pieces of software and how everything kind of connects together. Last question: did they have Zapier back when you were doing
no, I
enterprise
don't know
software?
Zapier. No,
Okay.
but I will say, doing the software, having that tech background has actually been beneficial to my storm chasing career. So I use like when I run my live streams, I'm streaming to a server that I've built and I stand up in Google Compute Engine, so Google Cloud. So all your SaaS businesses, everything all is all run out of Google Cloud, right? So I think most of the chasers are running like boxes at home, and I didn't want to do that because, well, one, you got to worry about it being up and connecting to home. If your power goes out at home, you're screwed. I can pack my bag, a backpack, throw all my gear in it, head to Florida, get off the plane and fire up my live stream and have my whole thing going with just my phone and streaming to Google Cloud. And then from Google Cloud, I distribute it out to everywhere, YouTube, Twitter, well, X now.
That's awesome.
Like Radar Omega, I have a partnership with them, so I'll live stream to there. So all that is, yeah, it's all running Google Cloud on a virtual machine. So and that, yeah, so all your SaaS software these days is all run on a cloud like Google Compute Engine or Microsoft Azure, I think is what they call theirs.
I apologize, everyone, for leading him down that rabbit hole. I was personally curious, but we do have some actual storm chasing specific questions now, and we will start it off with Gabe. I see your name is in red, so thank you for being a Chaser Academy member. He says, "Hi, Aaron. I'm a rookie storm chaser here for several years now. I have a question on about the 360-degree camera, which I believe you use. I have an Insta360 X4 camera, and the problem I come up with is my video gets a lot of noise, especially in darker environments, such as under the storm's base. What is your Insta360 camera setting for storm chasing?"
Yeah, so I'm running right now the X5. I do have an X4 as well. So I'm running the X5 actually. Okay, so I'll say this preface with this that the X5 is actually a big upgrade in low light uh performance. So it just out of the box it does better than X4. I'm just running out of box settings actually in the X5. I haven't changed any settings. Um if I need to adjust anything, I'll adjust it in post. So I'll take it in Adobe Premiere and adjust the highlights or bump the exposure if I need to smooth it out or whatnot. But yeah, I'm running just the basic settings out of the box. And again, they did make there's a big jump in that low light performance from the X4 to the X5. So
So maybe, Gabe, if you have the opportunity, I don't know what X4s go for on the resale market, but Aaron, you're saying that maybe upgrading to an X5 when you get the opportunity might be the better way to do it.
yeah, either upgrade to the X5, but even with that, you still, I think it's beneficial to learn how to adjust stuff in post. So even the Insta360, they have their own native editing app. That's the Insta360 app. You can adjust a lot of that stuff in that app itself. So adjust the highlights, adjust the exposure and stuff, and can help in those darker situations if you don't have the budget for the X5 right now. So. I believe there probably are some. I just have never gotten into it and adjusted anything. There probably are some settings you could probably go into manual mode, maybe adjust some things potentially. I wouldn't be surprised if that feature is there. I actually haven't looked into it. So
All right, we are going to play a little bit of a game here, actually, because I see you, Jack Kelly. You have your hand up. There's one problem. You're not a Chaser Academy member, which means Seymour4198 gets to jump you and ask their question. So this is a call to all members out there. Let's do our best to make sure Jack Kelly has to wait a long time to get his question answered. I want to see the members active out there. Sorry, Jack. You're the collateral damage here. Aaron, this question comes from Seymour4198. How have you noticed Chaser Convergence change over the years? I assume it's grown, but has that been recent? There were some situations that I witnessed that seemed quite dangerous last season. In parentheses, they say I'm a pretty new storm chaser. Do you think we are on track for a potential tragedy? And Aaron, before I let you answer that, I actually want to do a callback to a conversation we had 5 years ago on the Chaser Chat podcast. I believe it was 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And this has stuck with me. Like every single guest I have, there's always one or two tidbits that really like sticks in my mind and I carry it with me forever. And I remember you talking about how with your storm chasing strategy, one of the things you would do is you would just hang back and maybe give the storm a little more time to breathe, find a more advantageous spot, and not be so quick to jump on storms right away and get in the mix with everybody, especially if it's a highly congested area. And so I'm also wondering as well, in addition to Seymour, if that's a strategy that you still find yourself employing.
Yeah, so I'll come to that. I'll answer that. And start off with, believe it or not, I actually feel like the chaser convergence is not as it was been worse in the past. So the worst chaser convergence I've ever experienced was 2012, April 14, 2012, big high risk outbreak in Oklahoma and Kansas. Now, this is gonna kind of feed into my answer to what you just asked. So that's the worst chaser experience I've ever experienced. Ridiculous traffic, the lines of traffic, couldn't go anywhere. Fortunately, there were a lot of storms and things kind of to start off, chasers were spread out, but eventually there was one storm that looked like it was going to be the storm and everybody converged on it. That's the worst chaser experience I've ever experienced. That was 13 years ago, 2012, right? 13 years ago. uh, so 2012, I was still, I wasn't a rookie chaser, but I was still figuring things out. I was still trying to find my way, find my identity as a storm chaser. How am I going to chase? What am I going to do? Still learning the storms. So over time, I- right now I like to get up close to storms, to tornadoes. You get up close to tornadoes, and I took my time to do that. I didn't just do it right out of the gate. I learned how to get up close, started out back. So you hang out back, you hang back a little bit. You're naturally going to find yourself more in that crowd of convergence, right? And back then, that's what it was. There was a lot of people just kind of chasing and the reason that the convergence was so bad in 2012 because of the TV show Storm Chasers on Discovery Channel. So there was tons of traffic, tons of people just following the storm chasers from the TV show out there, right? So it was really, really bad. So fast forward to now, storm chaser convergence. Convergence is bad right now. Yeah. It's really bad if you're in Oklahoma and it's a big day. It's going to be, it's guaranteed it's going to be terrible convergence. You might as well be in Dixie Alley. I 100% strategize how I chase and where I chase, uh, based on convergence. So if you see a lot of my posts lately on Twitter, I've been making fun of the light bar brigade guys because they all just follow each other around. They get in these big convoys, and maybe only one of them knows how to forecast, and that's why they follow each other. But they all bunch up, and they just follow me. They just chase the Storm Prediction Center outlook. I don't know. So when I see a big day like that, I know there's going to be a bunch of convergence. My first instinct is there a secondary target that I can go chase that has as good of a chance to produce a tornado, maybe even a better chance to produce a tornado, and that no one else is really going to be chasing it? Because my ultimate uh, goal when I'm chasing is I want to capture tornado footage that nobody else is capturing, if possible. Sometimes that's got to be a different angle, a closer angle. Sometimes I'm the only one on the tornado, or they're very one of like a handful of people, right? So I will make a decision on, am I going to chase this day there, and how bad is the convergence going to be? Okay, so let's say there is a day, there's a target. I gotta go chase it because there really is no secondary target, and I would just be wasting my time to go elsewhere. So I gotta go chase, and I'm gonna have to deal with this convergence. So at that point, that's when a lot of experience and knowledge of storms starts to come into play. So I, you know, over time, you're not going to be able to just do this right out of the gate when you're first when you're a rookie storm chaser. It takes time to learn a storm, to look at it, to know, is this a storm that's going to produce a tornado in 15 minutes? Or is this a storm that's going to produce a tornado in an hour? Or is this a storm that's just done? It's not going to produce at all. Well, you start to develop an eye for that. And so then when you can develop an eye for that, you can start considering, you know, if I know it's going to be a bad day of convergence, I'm going to stay downstream, out ahead of the tornado, out ahead of the storm. I'm going to watch the storm. I'm going to watch surface observations, visible satellite. I'm going to watch the radar, and I'm trying to judge, is this a storm that's going to produce or not? Ideally, I have a visual of it. Out in the plains, you can definitely have a visual of it from pretty far away, so that's generally pretty easy. But out in the plains, there's so much room and big road network and stuff that it really helps reduce that chasing conversion. So yes, I 100% Consider the chaser convergence as a pawn on the board, just like river crossings or road network, any of those things. That is definitely a pawn. And if you want to go look at it, there's one good tornado. One of the best examples I have of myself doing this is that an outbreak in 2019, May 20th, 2019, a Mangum, Oklahoma, high risk. It was supposed to be, we had this like God run of the HRRR showing like 100 supercells all producing tornadoes with hook echoes ripping across Oklahoma and down into Texas. And that didn't happen. Something failed that day, and it was easy to see that that was happening. And I saw that it was starting. Well, not easy to see it was happening, but it was easy to see it was happening once it started happening. I was like, "Oh shit, this is not gonna happen." Because I was actually playing like out ahead for like some open warm sector storms. I'm like, "Oh, they're not. This is not gonna happen." One storm went up, and it just immediately just shriveled and died. I'm like, "We're done out here to the east. I got to get to the storm off to the west." So I raced back to the west. Uh, Chasing this supercell, I see a cold front start crashing. I'm like, oh crap, the cold front's crashing. This storm is done. There's one supercell left. I got to get to it. It's the next supercell down the line, but I got to get to it before the cold front gets there and undercuts it. And I get down there and I'm out ahead of it. And sure enough, produces a tornado, comes right to me, comes right past me. I get badass footage. The amount of posts I saw on Twitter today complaining about the convergence because they missed that storm or that tornado because they were all tracking off to the west. They were all trying to follow the storm. You get a line of traffic convergence and then you're done. You're never going to keep up with a storm on a big day like that, even out in the middle of the plain. So if you know, it's good to know that if you think there's going to be convergence to try and stay out ahead of the pack. And and part of that becomes down to my personal chasing style. Like again, I go back to the light bar brigade. They all like to hang out and buddy up and sit in gas stations and stroke each other's backs and stuff and or whatever. So I avoid that. I like to get out in the middle of nowhere and be by myself. And so that's conducive. And that allows me also to become one with the storm. Like I'm not out there to hang out with people. I like people, but I like storms and tornadoes better. And I got a job and a mission. So when I'm out there, I'm like 100% focused on the environment and the atmosphere and what's happening and watching visible satellite. And one of my favorite things to do is to actually chase the setup. So I start chasing before the storms even appear. Where's the warm front? Okay, I'm gonna follow this warm front to the north and keep with it, and I get pleasure out of that. I remember one time chasing a warm front. I got north of it a little bit. I'm like, okay, I think the warm front's gonna come through here. Just hanging out, sunny day. All of a sudden, this big gust of wind comes from the south. I'm like, there it is. There's the warm front. Time to go and move it and keep following north. So kind of a long-winded answer to the convergence, and I added some other things in there, but
No, that's what we're here for, man. That's what these are great for, is to really get the unfiltered answers that you can't pick up in the sound bites that people are normally used to in short form content and quick radio hits and that sort of stuff.
yeah.
All right, so we have a nice little backlog. Do not answer this question, Aaron. I'm just going to shout out my man Nick because he is a Chaser Academy subscriber, and I do kind of like the guy. But Nick Gorman asked, "Do you like light bars?" I'm going to answer for you and say probably not a huge fan. And we will move on to the next question from Jen Kushner. She said, "Hi, Aaron. What is your favorite chase of all time?" And I think I know which one you might say, but I'm not going to spoil it for everybody.
Yeah. That's a really hard question and to answer. And I think it lately I feel like it's changed almost yearly. Um, just because we've had some banger years the last few years. There's some like I've had a lot of career tornado intercepts. And when I say career tornado intercept, I mean like I'm up close. It's amazing footage. It's long duration footage. There's very other little footage of people out there getting it. My favorite chase is gonna be of all time is gonna be Westmoreland, Kansas,
Okay.
2024 EF3. Um, and okay, and now before I continue, I want to ask Gabe what he thought mine was and why he thought it was that.
I was going to say it almost had to be Scarth, but because I believe you were with your wife on that one, right? And it was right in your backyard. You didn't have to travel far. There weren't many people around. Just a perfectly photogenic tornado. That's the one I would have guessed if I had to guess.
Well, it was definitely that one for a long time. That was an
Okay.
amazing tornado, amazing chase. Um, and the only reason that one is not number 1 is, comes down to my forecast. So that day that day, Scarth, I kind of begrudgingly chased that day. Man, I don't wanna chase this. I gotta go though, as I look like a fool if something happens. And it was lucky that that storm produced, right? So, but my favorite chase now then becomes that Westmoreland one because I made a really good forecast that bucked the NWS trend, bucked all the chases. So the Storm Prediction Center had an enhanced risk, I think, or maybe it was in a moderate risk. I think it was an enhanced risk on April 30th, 2024, up in Iowa. And then it kinda extended down into northeastern Kansas, uh, possibly if it was moderate in Iowa, there was an enhanced coming into Kansas, but if it was an enhanced in Kansas, there was a slight coming into or if it was an enhanced in Iowa, there was a slight coming into Kansas. Irregardless of what the actual upper echelon of the risk was that day, I chased the slight risk in Kansas. Uh, and this ties it right into, uh my answer to the previous question about chaser conversion. So, number 1, like, that day was a huge day in Iowa. Well, no, sorry, didn't end up being a huge day. It was forecast to be a huge day in Iowa, and we had just had that big April 26th outbreak in Nebraska and Iowa. So, and I had seen like a dozen tornadoes. And I'd made this amazing intercept of a tornado as it crossed I-80 in Lincoln, Nebraska, and so at that point, I was like, "Okay, there's gonna be a lot of people chasing. There's this big setup in Iowa. There's no way I'm gonna go chase, in Iowa because well, if I can, there's no way I'm gonna go chase a setup in Iowa because there's gonna be chasers, stuffed to the gills there. There's gonna be bad chaser traffic, convergence." So I was like, "Well, let me look at secondary target." So I looked at Kansas, and again, I like I mentioned earlier, like if I'm gonna look for a secondary target when I can, if it makes sense to chase it. And on this day, that secondary target, what I saw was gonna be so first of all, I was worried about Iowa being sloppy and kind of a mess and kind of grungy. And I would rather see a beautiful tornado than a grungy tornado. You know. And so I was like, okay, well, if I go up there, it's gonna be grungy tornadoes, chaser convergence. So right now we got two negatives for that day in Iowa. Looking at Kansas, I'm like, okay, Kansas is gonna be a little less widespread storms, which is good because you're not gonna have storms. If you get a storm, if it happens, you're gonna get a nice isolated supercell that can just breathe and just feed on the warm, moist air, hopefully in place coming up from the south. And sometimes those, you have a big day. Sometimes too much of the ingredients kills the day. You get storms exploding everywhere, screwing up the environment, and you don't get that big nice supercell, big nice tornado. You might get some tornadoes and stuff, or just worst case scenario, you get a shelf cloud, right? And you're just chasing a shelf cloud a day. You want to see tornadoes. So I'm looking at Kansas, and I'm like, oh, the dew points are kind of low right now, and that's going to be a limiting factor. But I saw using Sat Squatch, the app, using their surface analysis, I saw a tongue of dews surging up to the north in Kansas. So I'm like, know what? I just had a big day on April 26th. I saw a dozen tornadoes. I got the best tornado shot of that Lincoln tornado going across the road. Nick Gorman's was good as well until I raced in front of them because I got in my shot. And so I was like, you know what? I saw some awesome shit 4 days ago. Like I got some credit here in my bag to if I miss this day and I don't see anything, so be it. But if I hit, there's gonna be no one else there, and I'm gonna have the best shot of a tornado, if it happens in Kansas, so oh, yeah, so I'm like, I'm gonna wait for those dews, see what happens. So I hung out, I had a beautiful day, and these are my favorite days, my favorite chase days. Beautiful day, hanging out, waiting for storms, didn't really no pressure, I'm in the right spot, just wait for the storms to happen. Maybe they happen, maybe they don't. If they don't, I was out looking for rocks, looking for snakes. If it doesn't happen, oh, well, whatever. I'll go. I just had an amazing day less than a week ago, and I'll go reset, try again the next time. So I went and chased Kansas. So I'm waiting for those dudes to arrive, sitting there hanging out, and then suddenly I felt them arrive. The winds picked up out of the south, out the air get moister. I'm like, there it is. There's those dew points where it's game on, right? And at that point, storms had already started to develop along the cold front off to my northwest, just starting to get going. Like, all right, here we go. Let's follow these dews, this line of storms, and see what the hell happens here. So I start heading northwest, tracking along, watching my radar on my phone, the velocity scan, looking off to my west. Nothing I could see visibly, very high based, right? And this is another thing that comes into play on this day. I knew the storms were going to be high based. And I'm like, man, if one of these storms produces a tornado, it's going to be freaking beautiful tornado, right? So I'm watching and watching high base. All of a sudden, I see that velocity couplet on radar, but still nothing. I'm like, where's it at? Like, this is going to produce. Like, where is this? They're not even a funnel cloud, right? I get into the town of Westmoreland. Finally, a little funnel cloud starts to come down. And yeah, if you want to see the rest of the story, you should go watch my videos because it was the most amazing intercept of my life. So
I love that. And where can they find your videos if they want to watch the rest of that one?
you could go. So I just recently actually posted one on Facebook. Just search for Aaron Jayjack Extreme Storm Chaser. But I would go to my YouTube channel. It'd be easier to find it. You can just search Jayjack Storm Tracks or just J. I would just search Jayjack Westmoreland Tornado and you'll find it. And I would, if you really want, I have a couple of versions up there. I have one where I kind of did like a vlog and kind of tell this kind of a storytelling with music and stuff. And some people don't like that one because of the music and occasionally yell. So I have another version that's called the scariest tornado sound ever recorded raw as it happened or something like that. Where I cut out any kind of yelling and no music, it's just raw. And that one is like I've watched it like 6 times today. Like I watch it like almost every day just because like I want to go back to relive that tornado. Put on some headphones and like, man, I understand why I see people leaving comments like, man, I felt like I was there because I feel like I'm there again when I watch it. And that's not even a 360 video. I also have 360 videos, video of that tornado. If you got goggles, you can throw on and experience it that way. So
That's so badass. And there were two things in particular that really stood out to me with that story. I mean, besides the fact that it sounds like a just freaking magical day. Number one, the fact that you relied so heavily on your own forecasting acumen as opposed to just going where the conventional play was. And then number two, the fact that you were quite literally experiencing the surface observations in real time. Like you went a step beyond just looking at the observed data. You were literally standing in the field trying to feel the dew points as they surged around you. And I think both of those things really just go to show how much additional skill there is when it comes to forecasting that you lose out on when you really just go with whatever the obvious target is and you plop yourself down in the middle of the bullseye and you just hope for the best versus actually really rolling up your sleeves and figuring out, okay, what is going on today? How could this play out? What are all the different permutations? And then developing something that you can call your own. And I can easily see why that is your favorite storm chase of all time because you really get to own that one. Other people didn't figure that stuff out. You did, and you ended up being rewarded as a result.
yeah, and and it very easily could have went the other way. It could have nothing happened, right? And then like, well, but that's just, that's storm chasing. That's like you got to take those gambles sometimes. I mean, every chase is a gamble, right? Like you're going into a chase, but sometimes you got to gamble on the gamble. Like I'm going to go chase, and now I'm going to gamble on a storm that no one else is going to chase because again, like and it's also becomes more important in this day and age with like the market for storm chaser content is very oversaturated. So and besides being oversaturated, like I really don't like. I'll get something out of intercepting a tornado, but if there's 15 other dudes standing around me getting the same shot, like I really don't get anything out of that. Like, yeah, sure, it was cool, tornado, but my goal is to get the shot that no one else is getting. So
Jen Kushner, shout out, Chaser Academy member. She asks, how long have you been doing Chaser Chat, Gabriel? So I started Chaser Chat back in early 2020. I've told this story before. I'll tell it again briefly here. The pandemic came, everybody's lives were kind of upended. We were all sitting around inside all of a sudden with nothing to do. I had always wanted to learn how to storm chase and how to forecast and meteorology and all that jazz. And so I just decided that with my background in broadcasting, easiest way to do that was just going to be to convince people that knew what they were talking about to chat with me for 30 to 60 minutes and give up all their secrets. And in turn, I would do my best to promote them and put their story out there on the internet. And it just sort of all started rolling downhill from there, and everything turned out really well. And we are on a hiatus right now. The nice thing about Chaser Chat, of course, is that all the content is evergreen. So an episode is going to be good 10 years from now, just like it was the day after it was recorded. Kind of captures that moment in time and that person's story up to that point. But we will be back with new episodes. I can't say whether that's going to be, Q1 2026, whether that might be 2027. Things are kind of crazy with Storm Chaser coaching and some of the other stuff that I do for work, but we will be back someday with new episodes. But until then, there's 100+ episodes for anyone to listen to if you aren't already familiar with Chaser Chat. And Aaron Jayjack is, we have a full length interview, and then he's also been on a couple of other episodes. So be really cool if you wanted to go and check some of those out next time you're at the gym or on a long drive or something like that. Next up, we have Kazaki, another Chaser Academy member. He has raised his hand, so Kazaki, you are going to be getting invited up on the stage to speak. So, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thanks, and pleasure being able to ask questions, Aaron. So my question for you is: out of all the tornadoes you have chased, what's like one of the scariest near misses or close calls you've had, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah. So I just realized that my sound wasn't coming out of my headphones that I was wearing. It's coming out of the speaker. So I don't need those. It's like, why is it so quiet? So the scariest, nearest experience I've had. So that's an easy one. That was what year is it? 2025. That was last year, right? 2024. The Greenfield tornado day.
Wow.
That big day, the outbreak in Iowa. So that day is a bittersweet day for me. So I made one of the best forecasts I've ever made and nailed where the storms were going to form. And that was in extreme southwestern Iowa. And so I was on the storms real early, like the first storms that went up. And now this day, I knew it was going to be a tough day to chase because the storms looked like they were going to be fast moving storms. So 60-mile-per-hour moving storms. On this day, I was also, so if you followed my storm chasing, my favorite storm chasing vehicle is my 2019 Subaru Crosstrek. Got some duct tape on the side, says LOL on it. A story for if someone wants to know, you can ask that question, but has LOL on the side of it. I love my Crosstrek. It's beat to hell. It's got 10,000 hail dents in it. It's on its like 15th windshield. Lost a few windows. I actually put two new side mirrors on it because the mirrors have been blown out for a while. The glass was still there, but all the housing was gone. And on this day, I wasn't driving my Subaru Crosstrek, my 2019 Subaru Crosstrek. I'd just gotten a Toyota Tundra, and so I live in Canada, and I had a boat that was in Indiana, and I wanted to go chase this setup in Iowa, and then the next day I was gonna go get my boat in Indiana and then head home after that. So I took the truck down to go chase this big setup. Now I think that day ended up being a moderate risk, and so I make this beautiful forecast, like perfect forecast, nailed right where the storms form. I'm right there. Kind of chased one storm, but it didn't look right. And so right away this is a weird day. This day ended up being a weird day, like weird supercell evolution, weird tornado evolution, just a weird day. Fast moving storms. Not a kind of day like you look at the storms that were forming. Not a kind of day you would expect that we end up having like the strongest tornado to ever be. I mean, the thermodynamics and stuff there looked like they was capable of doing something like that. But the way the storms looked out of the gate, like you wouldn't think this is the day is going to produce the strongest wind ever recorded in a tornado, right? So going into this chase in my new truck, okay, I don't want to f up my new truck because I've already got one vehicle that's all effed up from chasing. I gotta try and keep this thing looking nice. I don't want to get any hail. So I start chasing, drop off one storm, get on this next one. This big cone forms, funnel cloud, and this thing just starts rotating, just red, big, huge rain curtains wrapping around. I'm chasing it with the truck. And sure enough, just like, was forecast, this storm is just hauling. Just like I get out, I'm like, I'm way ahead of it. And I get out, I'm like, I want to shoot some video of it. All of a sudden, this thing, like before I knew it, was like right in my face. And I'm like, oh shit, like I gotta get out of here. And again, it wasn't fully condensed, it was a cone, but this just monster wind field just rotating around. Like, yeah, I think this is the tornado. Like these rain curtains kind of are about to blast me. I'm like, oh shit, this is the tornado. This whole thing is the tornado, right? So I jump in my truck and I just floor it, right? And I'm hauling ass down this dirt road. And so if I was in my Subaru, I wouldn't have been in that position. I actually would have just stayed right alongside it to the north and kind of hung back a little bit and chased right alongside it and kind of followed the tornado and let it cross the road in front of me. But because I was in my truck, like I don't want to stay back and get in the hail. I got to stay out ahead of it. So I race out ahead and I'm racing. And this thing's like, I'm like, oh shit, this thing's catching me, right? It was catching up with me. I literally was going 60 miles an hour. I'm on dirt roads. I'm trying not to go too fast and lose control, but I had to go fast because it was catching up with me. I get to this T in the road, an intersection, and quick decision. I'm like, I literally have like, 5 seconds or less to make this decision as I'm coming up. So I go left and try and keep up with the storm, but I might get steamrolled by this tornado. It would be a close call. Do I go right and get south of the tornado because it's moving off to the northwest and it might occlude off to the north, drop to the south? I'd be safe, but I'm gonna kind of screw myself for chasing this very fast storm, right? If I lose contact with the storm, I'm done. I'm not gonna catch up with it. My other option was to go straight east, and I had a road that goes east. And so I'm like, if I go east, I could keep going, staying ahead of the storm, let it cross the road behind me, and then I'll eventually make a turn to the north, make contact with the tornado again. So I make the quick decision, like I'm gonna blast through this intersection and go straight. As I'm doing that, I see a sign that says like no maintenance road or something like that. And I look at the road, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a mud pit. Like I'm gonna be screwed. I hit that dirt and I'm like, oh shit. And I try to hit the brakes, slam on the brakes to try and be like to back out and to go to the south and just start sliding. And I'm like, oh shit, I might get hit by this is the first time I've ever been like, oh shit, I might get hit by this tornado. And so it was real close. The truck starts getting blown sideways, and then I was worried about I was gonna get blown into the ditch. Luckily it just missed me to the north and west. Yeah, north and west. Just grazed by me. I was in the outer wind field, so it was mostly RFD that was kind of pushing me from the side, across the road and went on. And then I fell behind. I couldn't get out of the mud and watched the Greenfield, Iowa tornado form off to my east then, and I was done, and that would have been the storm to be on. So I was disappointed that day, but I made a great forecast, which ended up screwing me. But because I was in my truck, so my Subaru, made some mistakes that I had no choice to make those mistakes really, which then cost me the intercept of the Greenfield tornado, which I would rather have been on that tornado. So, but at least I didn't die. So, and all in all, it was a good day.
I think the moral of the story here is if you ever have a dilemma like that again, or if anyone else does, just get the rental car.
Yeah, that's the moral of the story is don't drive a vehicle. If you have a style that requires a vehicle that you don't care about damaging, and don't chase in a vehicle that you're worried about damaging. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And well, I imagine too that there was a lot of muscle memory involved as well, right? Maybe if you had a little more time, you would have been able to formulate a strategy that was different than you would normally employ because you were in a different type of vehicle. But in that moment where it's just quick decisions one after another like that.
Yeah, it was the speed of the storm. It was just when you got a storm moving 60 miles an hour, you have very little time to react. Like you've got to make quick decisions. So, I still, in my early days of chasing, that's something you kind of, without tornadoes, just like it's good to chase shelf clouds and stuff like that, and to learn to look at a cloud and see how fast it's moving, kind of gauge a storm, how fast it's moving, and know how much time you have, and to leave yourself some of that buffer room. So when it does matter, when it's not a shelf cloud, it's an actual tornado, you're not caught standing there watching it. And then before you know it, a ghost train comes and sweeps you up from behind or something, right? Like, so
Yep.
yeah. So it's important that's an important skill to learn, is to gauge and to always leave that buffer room, especially as you're newer and starting out and you're not, comfortable around storms or whatnot. Leave that buffer room. So especially on a day, again, it's good to join tornado coaching to learn how you can tell on how fast a storm is going to move on a day. So yeah.
Yeah, every single storm that I chased when I first started, that was probably my biggest leak in my game. Was I would get behind every single storm because I was just waiting until I was almost parallel with the storm before I would start changing locations. And by that time, for all but the slowest of storms, you just don't have an opportunity at that point. You don't realize how fast large things are moving until they actually just overwhelm you and get on top of you. And you're like, oh, okay, that was just like a trick of perception. Because it was so big, it looked like it was moving slow.
Absolutely. And it's also, and that thing that's big, it looks like it's moving slow. It's also not dealing with road networks or chaser convergence or anything like that. It's just zipping along in the line it wants to take, and there's nothing stopping it. So
Yep, exactly. Very solid advice for everyone. All right. Jen Kushner, Academy member, back with another question. She just wants to know what makes the tornado grungy. I think she heard you say that earlier. And is there an official classification for what you would consider to be a grungy tornado?
yeah, the grungy tornadoes are those. Okay, so you've got photogenic tornado and you've got grungy tornado. Photogenic tornado, in my opinion, what makes a photogenic tornado is it's going to be potentially a high base tornado. So there's the cloud deck is up high enough that you can see a lot of that funnel cloud, a lot of that tornado. It's not sheathed in cloud. Grungy tornado is going to have most of that tornado sheathed in cloud deck, and then you get that in the southeast Dixie Alley, because you've got a lot of moisture down there. So a lot of moisture. LCLs, low LCLs, you get clouds that form right just above the surface. And a lot of those tornadoes, most of the tornado is just hidden. You can't see it. So that's essentially a grungy tornado in my book. It's most of the tornado is hidden, can't see it, and you're only seeing the bottom 10-15% of the tornado, and it's probably not beautiful because I mean, especially if it's in a populated area, because that 10-15% part of the tornado you're seeing is the part that's causing damage and debris and stuff, and that's not photogenic. So I like the ones out in the open plains, not causing damage, big long funnel. Yeah, and that Westmoreland tornado is a perfect example. Like, you could see that funnel for thousands of feet up into the air, and but most of the time, that same storm, you put that same storm in an environment in the southeast, let's say, that has a lower cloud deck and it's sheathed in cloud, and it's probably not going to be photogenic, right? You're just going to see a little bit at the bottom. So yeah.
Even our very own Stephen Cross raised his hand, so I'm going to let you up on the stage here real quick. Make it snappy, though. We got other questions to answer.
All right. I got a good question. So I was chasing with my good friend Falcon Storm Chasing yesterday in West Texas, and he asked me a really good question in the car, and I want to ask you: is there anybody you've met in this community, in the weather community, that you feel like is just mythical, that you feel is different than everybody else?
No, because I stay out in the middle of nowhere and do my own thing, so I don't. I try to avoid all the people, right? Like, no, no.
No one that's really had that gravitas that you walk away from the encounter and you're just like, man, that guy was something else.
Oh, I have. Is that bad?
No, not at all. In fact, I actually
Okay.
think that, on the contrary, one thing I've always thought about this little hobby is that all of the people who are considered, we'll call them like the titans, and I would put you in that category, the people who are the real upper echelon of storm chasers, they've always felt very accessible, not like maybe in some other disciplines or some other hobbies where there is a like a layer of separation. And I know you said you generally like to storm chase to where you kind of stay secluded and alone, but I mean the very fact that you're willing to do stuff like this speaks to the fact that you're not averse to sharing your knowledge, helping out the next generation of storm chasers. And I've noticed that a lot. So I think maybe a lot of the mythological element is shattered when everybody's just so down to earth and willing to have conversations and talk with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like, you know, yeah, because to me, like the other storm chasers are not like that's not what I'm out there for. I'm out there with the storms. Like, I want to be put in awe by the storm I see, right? So yeah, like yeah, I guess that's just not who I am. I guess I'm a yeah.
All right. So next question, we are finally to the questions from folks who are not Chaser Academy members. So that means Storm Chaser, Jack Kelly. I tried my best to keep you off the stage for the whole show, but it's not going to work. So you are up next, my friend. Feel free to ask Aaron your question.
All right. I just want to say, nice to meet you, Aaron. I'm glad to be speaking to you. So I have this one question for you. What is your best tornado of the year? And I'm talking about in 2025. Like, what was the best one you've seen?
Well, it's nice to meet you as well. The best tornado I saw in 2025. That's a very easy one. That was the Wellfleet tornado in Nebraska.
The whole chat
And
was typing Wellfleet, by the way.
yeah, yeah. So I did a podcast recently with Gabe Cox and the Storm Reel podcast, and we talked about this tornado. And I'm gonna bring back a piece that I mentioned there because I thought it was a good way to summarize that chase for me. So that day, that chase, uh, in my book, and it's really close to being my. You asked me what my favorite chase was, and I said Westmoreland. Well, the Wellfleet one is pretty darn close as well. But it was to me, it was chaser poetry that day. Like I woke up and I go. I hope it's okay to just tell this story about this day to answer this question, but I woke up on
Yeah,
that
of course,
day.
of course.
Yeah. I woke up on that day and that the primary target that day was in Minnesota. I think there was an enhanced risk in Minnesota. And we were in peak season. We're in June. And my favorite place to chase in North America, and I'll say the United States. My favorite place to chase in the United States is the high plains. Um, Eastern Colorado, Western Texas, West Texas Panhandle, Western Kansas, Western Nebraska, up into the Dakotas, Western Dakotas and Montana. So high plains. That's my favorite place to chase. I love it out in the plains, but I especially love it in the high plains. So I started that chase. It was a kind of a multi-day expedition. I left home in Canada and I knew it was going to be like 3 days of chasing, peak season. And I knew that the day in Minnesota was always in the back of my mind. I was watching that, but my plan, there was a couple of days leading up to that we could see some storms in the high plains. Not a big tornado day chance or anything like that. I really went into those chases not expecting any tornadoes, and I didn't see any tornadoes. But I got to do again for chasing for me. Like you have so much downtime and stuff. I've developed other hobbies that kind of coincide with I can do while I'm storm chasing. So I like to look for like rocks and agates and stuff. And the high plains are really good for looking for rocks and agates. So I'm like, I'm gonna go on this chase and I'm gonna head down to the high plains. I'm gonna go camp out in BML land, so middle of nowhere. I just drove down and I went to this grassland and parked the car in the middle of nowhere, popped out my tent, and the dog and I slept in the tent. Some storms came through at night. Next day we woke up, we did some rock hounding, chased a little weak setup in the high plains. I saw some storms, but nothing good. And then the next day, I headed a little bit east into Nebraska, and I knew the next day was going to be that Minnesota, the big day in Minnesota, the enhanced risk or something like that in Minnesota. But I was like, well, there's a chance we'll get some storms down in like southern Nebraska, the secondary target. Like, do I really want to drive to Minnesota and go chase some grungy ass storms in the trees, moving 60 miles an hour that everybody else with light bars is going to be chasing. Hell no, I don't want to do that. I love the high plains. I want to see a tornado that nobody else sees. I'm going to go roll the dice and take a gamble, and I'm going to go do some rock hounding, and then I'm going to go chase this setup, and we're going to see what the hell happens. So I woke up that morning and took one more look like, should I go to Minnesota? Hell no, I'm not going to Minnesota. Going rock hounding. So I go rock hounding, and I'm out in the grasslands. Just beautiful day. Go and meditate on this big hill. Pretending I'm like a Native American 300 years ago and hunting. Like I'm looking for antelope, gazelle, and just, I'm just enjoying myself out there. I'm becoming one with nature, right? Like, all right, well, I guess I better head south because I was in like northern Nebraska and the Ogallala grassland. I'm like, all right, I told myself, like, well, I got till about 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and then I'll have to make a drive south 3 hours to southern Nebraska to see if anything happens down there. So I had 3 hours south, just had a beautiful day out in the grasslands. Make this forecast, like, okay, I'm gonna go target down here. Start watching, go get a burrito, go get myself a burrito, go park in a parking lot, start looking at data. And off to my west, I see some storms starting to go up in the high plains, but way west, like eastern Colorado, Wyoming, and coming into Nebraska. Like, well, there's that option, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some supercells that could potentially fire. It was down to my southeast, and I forget the exact setup and why, but like there's a chance some storms might fire down there. And I think the Storm Prediction Center also did have like a slight risk there. And I think it was a 2% tornado day. And those are my favorite to intercept, by the way, is the 2% tornado. Again, because there's not going to be any light bars there.
I'm noticing a recurring theme in a lot of the answers that you're giving here tonight.
Yeah, but I mean, exactly, because if there's 15 people with light bar, I'm trying to like get good footage, right, and sell footage. And if there's 15 people with light bars getting the same grungy tornado, like I ain't gonna sell shit, right? So I'm gonna go chase down in Nebraska and drill the dice. So I'm down in Nebraska, eating my burrito, watching these towers off to my west. This blow off anvil tops starts getting shade. I'm watching visible satellite, and I'm seeing like, okay, something's something's starting to fire to my southeast. Eat my burrito, watching 15 minutes elapses or so. And then I finally make the decision, like, yeah, this looks like I should pull the trigger on these storms in my southeast. And I start heading that way. And I drive up to it. And as I'm driving up to it, can get, I was, let's say at long distance, I could see the anvil and it was exploding. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on the right storm. This is looking really, really good. Right. And then I'm driving up to it a little closer enough to see the base. And maybe like 10 15 miles west of the base, I'm like, oh man, it's looking really good. Big base, you can see a clear slot cut out. Like, this thing's gonna produce. I got about 5 miles from it, tornado warning starts going off on my phone. Like, oh shit, it's tornado warning. And then I look at the tornado warning, I'm like, it says it's observed, and I'm like, I don't see anything, right? I drive and I'm gonna get up right underneath it. And then sure enough, right off to the road, just off to the side, to the like 100 yards off the road for me, just little vortexes, little vortex every once in a while. I'm like, oh, it's intermittent touchdowns, right? I'm like, here we go. And that led to an hour, 77-minute long chase or something like that of this tornado. That now most tornadoes move to the easterly direction, southeast, east, the northeast. Occasionally they'll occlude in, they move to the northwest. Occasionally you get storms that are moving to the southeast. And the tornadoes moving to the southeast. But the storm vector was moving to the east. The tornado was moving to the east. And then suddenly the tornado decided it was going to loop around, came back, and this tornado started coming back to the west, chasing me down the road, crossed the road a few times, got amazing footage, went south of me and just danced out in this the sand hills for 40 minutes. Then I finally decided, I need to get a little bit closer to it. Got a little bit closer. And got some amazing footage. And again, I think there were maybe like no more than a dozen chasers on it, maybe less than that. I didn't see a single chaser on the tornado right where I was for about a half an hour in. Finally, someone drove by that was chasing it. And then a little bit later, a couple more chasers showed up towards the end of the life cycle. And I want to add on to my so when we talked about chaser convergence, and one of the things that happened with me on this chase is that it was not very many chasers, and it was not convergence, but I got into a situation in that tornado to where I was alone on it for a long time, and then suddenly some chaser came zooming in, came up, and the storm was about to cross the road, and there was a farm nearby, and a ghost train just ripping into this storm. I'm like, oh my gosh, shit, this thing's gonna tear this barn apart. And this was an erratic moving tornado. And I was like, oh, this storm's gonna tear this farm set apart and blow it across the road and block me in, and then pin me in with these other chasers or something like that, or bring down power lines. And I didn't want to be pinned in with all these chasers. So if you watch my videos from that day, you actually see I actually back out of there a little bit. And it wasn't because of the tornado, it was because all these other chasers came racing around me, and I didn't feel comfortable with the ghost train. And then once I saw that the ghost train was cleared, wasn't going to cause any problems, I got a little closer. But yeah, so and that reminds me that you guys asked if I ever thought that there could be a tragedy because of chaser convergence, and I didn't answer that, but I will answer it now based on that story. Yes, I think there potentially could be a tragedy because of convergence, and it'll be a situation like that I just described, a bunch of chasers getting in close, an erratic moving tornado, get pinned in because of debris across the road or something, or who knows what, and then that I can see that causing some problems. So yeah.
Absolutely. And want to mention to all of our viewers, we are officially shut down for questions now because we are running up against the clock towards the end of the session here. And Aaron, we're going to go into the lightning round now because we do try to make sure we get everyone's questions answered. But apologies if you've had your hand up for a little while or whatever. I'll bring you up on the stage, but just do your best to make it a little snappy. First off, Nick Gorman, do you ever notice any chasers following you, Aaron?
No, I haven't really noticed. Yeah, I mean maybe occasionally, but no, not really. I'm an old guy, so they want to follow the young guys, I think.
Connor Overholser, I apologize, my man. It looks like you got blitzed on both of your questions today. He wanted to ask you what your favorite chase this year was, and I think earlier he asked what the scariest chase you had ever experienced was. So we did answer both of those already. But I will say, Aaron, if you direct your attention to chat real quick, I want to ask, what do you think about this sticker that I just posted in the chat?
Trying to find the chat. Hold on. Show chat.
Click that as a little chat bubble right at the top right-hand corner should be up there.
Sticker?
Yeah. You see, I just posted that handsome young fella there.
Yeah, who is that?
That is Connor Overholser. I've turned him into a sticker for our server. So,
Oh, nice.
Shout out to you, Connor. Love having you here every week, man. All right, Extreme Weather requested to speak. Bring you up on the stage. Get that question out real quick, my friend. I think you're still muted there, Extreme Weather. All right, this is the opposite of extreme. I see a little loading symbol. I'm going to go ahead and move you back to the audience for now, but we will circle back as the last question, and I'll see if we can't get you back up here on the stage. Benny Boy, you are up next. Let me go ahead and pull you up to the stage here, and feel free to ask Aaron your question.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'm in traffic in Auckland, New Zealand at the moment, and my 74-year-old dad and me are coming next year for our first storm chase. Very excited to do it my whole life, and I just had a question about how should I plan the trip. We're probably going to do it for about 2 weeks. If you were me coming from another country, would you just book a random 2 weeks in like the end of May, or would you wait closer to the time? What would you do?
Well,
Thank you.
The most important question to answer that is how flexible are you? Like, can you hop on a plane, and it takes like 28 hours to get here from New Zealand, probably, right, on a plane. Can you make your plans to get here within a couple of days?
Apologies, Benny. I'd actually moved them back to the audience, but go ahead and answer. Go ahead and answer Aaron there.
I reckon, to get leave off work, I need about 2 weeks. But if I really was being sneaky, I could probably do it last minute. But I would say, for the sake of argument, 2 weeks max.
Yeah. So I would wait to make your decision until as close as you can to the dates. And I would target so traditionally, May is obviously peak season traditionally, but lately, I've seen the past few years, the last week of April has been really hot for whatever reason. And maybe that's just fluke, but I've had a lot of good intercepts in late April. So I like to tell people that last week of April and that first week of May.
Okay.
Now, that being said, like you could make that plans and right now, let's say, or a month before that, and then not get a damn storm, right? There could be no storms. So I would wait until I would set some dates, be like, okay, I'm gonna aim for this 2-week period. And 2 weeks before I've got to make that call, I would look at the models, at least at a high level, like a global model like the GFS that looks out, you can see out a couple of weeks and see if there's any hint for storms or what the general pattern is going to look like. And again, that is not going to be foolproof either, right? Like the only way you're going to really nail it is if you're making a decision like 2 or 3 days out and then fly in and jump and start chasing, right? So, but I would make that decision as close as you can to the date you can on some targeted dates. And if you get to that point and it looks like it's not going to be good, then just keep bumping that out until it looks like the pattern, you're going to get a change in the pattern that's going to bring some severe weather. And then, keep an eye on what's been happening. Did we just have major outbreak? And, when you get these major outbreaks, these cold fronts in the spring come sweeping through and they scour out and wipe out all the moisture across the whole continental United States. And if that moisture goes away in spring, then you're done. There's not going to be any storms. So if, you want to wait until after that moisture return comes into place. And again, but then that can take a couple of days. Yeah, this is a long-winded answer and it's supposed to be short. Sorry, lightning round. Bam, done.
No, that's totally fine. In fact, I was going to ask you one additional question that might be of use. If you were to pick one long-range model, what is your favorite one if you were trying to project out like 2 weeks into the future and have a reasonable chance of getting something that approximates a decent setup?
I definitely lean towards the GFS. I like the GFS. It's just what I've become comfortable with, but I don't ever rely on one model.
Okay.
I'm going to look at the GFS and if it looks good, that's what I'm going to start with. And then I'm going to go look at it like the NOM to see if it agrees as well. But then again, a lot of times it's not going to agree, right? But I like the GFS. GFS for long range and HRRR for short range are my go-tos.
Looks like extreme weather actually typed a question, so that's why they didn't have anything to say on stage. Coward, extreme weather. Just kidding. They ask, I am planning on going storm chasing in the Midwest next year. We live in Maryland, they said in parentheses. We are planning on going for 2 weeks. If we only had 2 weeks to chase, which 2 weeks would you pick? Late April, early May? So it seems like this is the same question as before, except I'm guessing with Maryland, you probably have a little more flexibility than if you're coming in hot from New Zealand. So I'm guessing a lot of what you just said would apply, except you thankfully have the benefit of being able to wait a little bit longer before you would have to make that decision.
Yeah, and I would say I would also consider one other thing to consider is, where do you want to chase? Do you want to chase in Oklahoma and Texas? Then target more of an April timeframe. You want to chase Oklahoma and Kansas and kind of target more of a May timeframe. You want to chase the high plains, central plains, high plains, and the northern plains, then you're talking June, July, and August more of a, no, I wouldn't say August, but June and July, then you're going to target June and July. So if that matters to you, consider that. Maybe it doesn't matter to you. One thing to consider though is at peak season when everybody else is trying to target April and May peak season, that's going to just add to that convergence and that kind of tails off as you go on later into the season. So
yeah, Aaron, I'm actually with you. I believe you said this earlier, so I apologize if I got this wrong. I prefer high plains chasing to central or southern plains. Something about the high plains is just so.
Oh, it's paradise, man. It's out in the open. There's no one out there. I don't know. It's like It's like the closest thing to heaven on earth for me. Is
Yeah,
being
no
out
doubt,
in the
man.
middle of nowhere, high plains, man. Like it's like spiritual.
Weatherman asks, Aaron, what type of apps or radar websites do you use? I know earlier you had mentioned SatSquatch. I think a lot of people love that one. Are there any other go-to tools that you have when you're out in the field?
So yeah, SatSquatch for real-time observations, um, satellite observations. You can also see like the different weather station observations. For radar, I use a couple of radar apps like Radar Omega. I use that. Also a radar scope. Um, I live stream in Radar Omega, so but I really like radar scope. Don't tell anyone. Um,
It's a really strange bedfellows type of scenario in the industry because as a storm chaser, I've noticed people are really willing to go where the paycheck is, which makes sense. If someone would like you to stream for them, you stream. But I noticed that that doesn't necessarily deter people from having their favorite apps or their favorite services that they use. And I like how there's not such a cutthroat mentality in the industry. Is I guess the best way to put it.
yeah, I've been using radar scope since 2007, the day it came out, and my eye is just trained to look at their scheme and their UI, and it's every app is a little bit different. And for whatever reason, like when you're talking life or death situation, like I need to make very quick decisions at a glance. Like I'm gonna go to the thing that I've been using for 20 years, or not 20 years, but 18 years.
I was gonna say
So
close to 20, man. You're
yeah,
getting up there.
yeah, yeah.
All right, two more questions here. Weatherman has a second one. They want to know what the biggest hail you've ever been hit by is.
Definitely it's like softball size in New Mexico. I've got this crater on the side of the Subaru that like is bigger than the soup bowl. So
Holy smokes, man!
and
Glad it
it
didn't hit
cratered
your
in my
noggin or
window.
anything.
Hit my windshield that same day, and like yeah, it was literally like it was bigger than so I was like almost cantaloupe sized crater in the windshield. So
Oh, it didn't take the windshield out?
no, it just cratered it in to like you could have ate some cereal out of the crater in the windshield.
That's awesome. All right, last question of the night. The distinction goes to sanest Northeast chaser, if that's actually even a thing. I think you're all freaking nuts, but you are up on the stage to ask Aaron the last question of the office hours session.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is I don't know if this is if I'm can make this opinion
Oh, geez.
because I've never chased a real setup and I don't have the money to get out to the plains, but like you're not supposed to be saying the high plains are good because we don't want more people out there. We want to minimize the amount of convergence out there. The second thing is like I wanted to ask what it was like to chase Wellfleet because that would be like a dream for me, but that's already been covered. So I guess the last thing I guess what I'll ask is like what it's what's something you look for like Canadian setups when you get into the summer and the jet stream gets way
Good
far
question.
north, like not like just meteorologically, because I would love to chase like a nice Canadian tour.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for the same stuff as I look for down south. The tools become a little bit different. Like, so I find like the HRRR, for example, does terribly up here in Canada. It's really tuned in for like the southern plains. So up in Canada, I actually, so the Didsbury, Alberta tornado in 2023, I made this big time intercept out in Alberta. And that was a forecast. I made that forecast days in advance and drove 12 hours, intercepted a tornado. I drove out there, stayed the night, woke up, got to the spot. The tornado happened, intercepted it, turned around and drove right back home. But perfect forecast. And I used a combination of the GFS the day of and the Canadian model. So I used the long range models instead of like the high resolution convective allowing models. I didn't look at a single cam for that day. I looked at the high resolution or the low resolution long range models, and I was looking for the moisture. So in Canada, I'm looking for the moisture. So of course you're looking for the other things. You're looking for shear and lift and instability. And those are going to come with the setup. But where is the moisture at? And even down south when I chase, like I like to keep things simple. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm a storm chaser that uses meteorology, and I mentioned that in some of my coaching videos. So I try to keep things simple and not get too complicated. And what I've developed for my identity of a chaser is I look for the moisture and I follow the moisture generally. Not 100% of a rule, but I'm generally going to kind of start there and lean there. So, and you
Is that
get,
typically the most? Oh, go ahead.
and I was going to say, and in Canada, you're far removed from our source of moisture, and that is the Gulf of Mexico. So you got other sources of moisture you're looking for up here, and that's the plants. So the evapotranspiration, all the crops and stuff in the prairie, just sweating out moisture is what ends up kind of becoming the moisture source for Canadian storms and setups and stuff. So
Is that typically where you see the most failure modes is with the moisture up there in Canada?
I think so. I think, anecdotally, I feel like, yeah, it's like, okay, no, not the most failure modes. Like I see it as like, if there's not going to be any moisture, then there's probably not going to be a tornado, right? Whereas like you could have other things that make up for the lack of moisture. Like there could be a lot more shear, not as much lift or instability, for example, or something, right? But if you don't have the moisture to condense for those tornadoes to condense down, then you're not going to get a tornado, right? So that's kind of why I lean, and I wouldn't say that because you either have moisture or you don't. And if you don't have moisture, yeah, then it's gonna fail. But but you're gonna see that you don't have moisture because it'll be one of those just in time events. Like a lot of times you have that moisture, it arrives just in time as the storms are coming, the systems, the low is wrapping up, and just in time that moisture surges up and gets into that triple point. Bam, you get storms. But sometimes that doesn't happen in time, and you get that cut off, and then yeah, you don't get the tornadoes and stuff. So.
By the way, when you were talking about how you only used the long range models on Didsbury Day, I'm just over here thinking like this guy's just out here casually doing side quests now when he's out storm
Yeah.
chasing. Like he's just done everything he needs to do already. He's just making it more difficult on purpose.
Well, but it wasn't. It was like the reason I did that is because I had been following the models in Canada for a while and just seeing them, and maybe it was more so that year, but they were just failing. I'm
Hmm.
like, I'm not even gonna bother looking at those models. What's the point of looking at the cams when they just
Yeah.
they're wrong, right? So what
Right.
else can I look at? Well, I'm gonna try the GFS and on the Canadian model and just see what it does. And I'm like, okay, well they're saying there's gonna be moisture here where the tornado ended up happening. And that kind of just got me looking there. But that day, what really got me that tornado was as I was driving along, I saw the storm starting to develop. And and in a combination of what I saw, and then I saw with the moisture and how it was acting, I'm like, oh, it's gonna happen here. And I went to there. So it's kind of like a visual cue of looking at the storms going up. Like, oh, they're gonna happen, and the moisture's there. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for joining us here tonight for the office hours. This is your first one, so it's been really cool to get a chance to let people ask questions, get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, cool. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. So look forward to doing these again. I love talking about storms and chasing. So like I got all this knowledge and stuff, and I don't really have anything to do with it. So because I chase alone and I avoid people when I'm chasing. So
Yeah, I was gonna say you get a couple of people coming down the same road as you, and you're just like, I got the ick, and you start to back out and just drive the other direction.
exactly.
Cool, cool. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us here tonight. The replays actually for these episodes are making a little bit of a change. There's going to be a channel that goes up in the next week or so. I'm not going to promise a day, but we're going to take all of the previous office hours episodes, including this one, and those replays will be available. We're going to upload them to YouTube. We're going to unlist them so that way the links will only live here on the Discord server. So just keep an eye out. We'll make an announcement for that when it happens as well, and you guys will be able to go back through them. Well, actually, we'll run them through an AI program as well first, so we have bullet points. That way, if you just want to use the search bar in that channel for the replays, you can quickly find out if there's any questions that were answered during each episode that are relevant to something that you might be wanting to search for or learn about. So thanks again, Aaron. Thank you to the audience, and we will be back next week for another office hours.
Yeah, no problem. See you guys later. I gotta see if my Twitter feed exploded or not.
Oh, I'm sure it has, man. I'm sure it has. Godspeed.
All right, see you guys later.